and welcome to the Sailing and Cruising the East Coast of the United States podcast. I'm Bela Musitz.
And I'm Mike Wasserman.
Hey, Mike, today we have an interesting guest for the podcast. He's Dustin Talacko. You know, Dustin is a paramedic firefighter, and he's clearly is very committed to his profession. You can just hear it in his voice. This guy is just really, really into it. And here's a great example of someone who's passionate about their profession, and in addition, they identified a need out in the marketplace, and they started a business. And you might ask, well, what does this have to do with sailing, Bela? Well, it got me thinking about emergencies, medical emergencies on a boat. The types of emergencies where if you don't do something, and if you don't know how to do something in the next few minutes, the person's not going to make it. So that's why I think this is an important issue to talk about and to have on the Sailing podcast.
Yeah, this might be the most important half hour you ever spend, right? If you take this advice to heart and do something about it. So, Bela, with that, let's get right to your interview with Dustin Talacko.
Hello, Dustin. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Sure. Hey, let me ask you a question. If you're at a social event, a sort of non-work related social event, and you get introduced to somebody there, and after that introduction, they say to you, Dustin, nice to meet you. What do you do? How do you answer that question?
That's a really good question, because both myself and my wife, who's my business partner, wear a lot of different hats. But I'm a firefighter paramedic here in Omaha. I work on a pretty blighted area of town, so pretty busy ambulance. So sometimes I say I'm a firefighter paramedic. If I'm at a marketing event or something like that, I tell them how I'm a small business owner. And we have a company that basically finds safety gaps in the community based on my wife being a kindergarten teacher and based on me being a paramedic. And we fill those safety gaps with training and life-saving equipment. So it depends on which crowd I'm around and who I'm with, but a lot of times I'm proud of the firefighter title, and specifically I'm a paramedic, and I love my craft, and I've been doing it for about 13 years now, and just really take a lot of pride in it, like I do my companies.
Yeah, excellent. That's a great answer. So tell us a little bit about the company you and your wife started.
Yeah, so kind of a long story short, following the Las Vegas shooting, I was in grad school, and I didn't really have any inkling on like starting a company at that point. But our teacher wanted us to create what's called a SWOT analysis, so strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. I had no idea what I was going to do it on. Literally the very next day, October 1st, 2017 hits, and I flip on the TV, and it's the Las Vegas shooting, and I'm like, holy cow, this is insane. Like, I'm a very prepared paramedic. My ambulance in Northeast Omaha, I probably had more equipment than most people did out of our 16 ambulances in the city, but I didn't have enough to respond to even any of this. And so essentially what I did was I decided to create that for my SWOT analysis. And I took it and I ran back to the department, and I decided, well, if I'm going to do this for my project, why don't I run it up the flagpole and try to do it for the fire department? So I told my chief, I said, hey, chief, what I'd like to do is create these mass casualty kits that I envision that is basic bleeding control kits. So tourniquets, pressure bandages, occlusive dressings, decompression needles, which are in our scope, trauma shears, things, life-saving stuff that we need immediately on a scene, because you can bleed to death in less than 3 minutes. We didn't have enough in our medic units at that time to respond to a mass casualty incident. And I said, I'd like to do this. And he goes, well, let me help you formulate a letter through the chain of command. And we did. And I kept getting shot down. They're like, well, if we do this for your ambulance, we're going to have to do it for all 17 ambulances in the city. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like, this is taxpayers expect that this is the bare minimum of what we had. And at that time, we didn't have enough. And so you've heard the Johnny Cash song, I took it one piece at a time. Well, over the course of like 6 weeks, we had this facility basically ordering system with the department, and I would just order 2 tourniquets, 2 pressure bandages, 2 decompression needles. And over the course of time, I built this kit that I envisioned. And another chief showed up one day, and I go, hey, chief, I just want you to know that we have this on our ambulance here, because believe it or not, a couple times a year, we'll get a mass casualty event. And when I say mass casualty, it might only be 4 or 5 people shot. It's a pretty blighted area of town, but we do get it. I said, I want you to know that this equipment's in here. And he goes, wow, this is great. Why don't we have this on all the squads? I go, well, I've tried. We're trying to formulate a letter through the chain of command. We just haven't heard anything back yet. So it kind of went up the chain. We didn't hear anything back. Next thing you know, November hits, January. So November, December hits, January hits. I don't hear nothing. And then I'm like, well, all I can do is control the bubble around me, right? So I decided there's not much I can do about it. So I'm just going to keep doing my job and being a good employee for the city. So February 14th, 2018 hits. I get a frantic phone call from a chief. He's like, hey, Dustin, where are we at on these kits? And I go, excuse me? Like, what do you mean, where are we at? He goes, where are we at in these kits? Are you in front of a TV right now? And I go, no. And he goes, flip on the TV right now. So I was at the station. I flip on the TV, and sure enough, is Parkland, Florida school shooting. And I go, oh, no. And he goes, if I can get you clearance by the end of the day, can we get going on these? I'm like, yeah, for sure. Well, it went to city legal, back down, up to the mayor's office, back down, all within an hour. They gave me clearance. I said, I need a written email because I don't want to go out and start soliciting. Because I essentially, the way that it started was I needed to, my chief told me, he said, you can't give them any way out. He said, you're either, offer them 2 solutions, and then the third solutions, you're going to probably go out and have to fundraise. So that's what it came down to. I had to go out and fundraise these funds. There's $25,000. So long story short, with the help of my union, Local 385, and all my brothers and sisters there, we fundraised the money. Pretty crazy stories behind that, and you probably don't have time for all that today. But we ended up getting all the money for that. And then once I started to sit back and think about it, as the fire department, we can't enter until a scene's deemed secure. So if you look at the Parkland, Florida school shooting, we as the fire department, we're going to be staged up the street for however long until the scene's secure. So Parkland, Florida, it was about 15 minutes. The American College of Surgeons will tell you, you can bleed to death in less than 3 minutes. So we needed to figure out how to get this equipment into these schools in a hurry and try to bridge that gap. So I'm like, well, this isn't going to do us any good. We're going to be staged up the street. So let me try to get the police department involved. So essentially what I did is I called the police chief and the union president and said, hey, I have some funds left over from this initiative. Will you match funds to build similar kits to put into vehicles with the police department that are guaranteed to be at a mass casualty incident? And he goes, yeah, we'll do that. And the union said, yeah, we'll do that. I'm like, really? It's that easy? So they matched. We built these kits. We built the kits. We were at the union hall getting ready to announce it to media. We had an amazing police chief. We still do. His name's Chief Smotter. He comes up and he goes, Dustin, I really appreciate what you've done. This is going to be fantastic for the city of Omaha, but I want you to know realistic expectations. He said, our officers are trained to walk through that front door, step over somebody that's bleeding to death and asking for help to go isolate and eliminate that threat. Right. So we will not be bringing these kits in with us. So that was my aha moment. I said, well, the only way to really bridge this gap is to get equipment into public facilities and train people how to use it. So my wife and I launched our first company, which was Talacko Safety Solutions. And our whole concept was building mass casualty kits with individual kits inside, tourniquets, pressure bandages, occlusive dressings, things of that nature for public facilities, and train people how to use them. So that's kind of how it started. It's evolved quite a bit since then. But it was, I'm not a big risk taker, but something just told me like, I have to do this. And I have a mentor in my life that told me, Dustin, I think this is a good idea. If you don't do it, somebody else is. There's really nothing proprietary about what we've done. There's other companies out there that have done it and that are much bigger than us. But in our area, we are the experts in bleeding control and AEDs.
Yeah. So, there's been a proliferation of AEDs in sort of public spaces. I live in upstate New York, and, all the schools have them. The big retail stores have them. Everyone has them. And they're pretty, you take them out, you turn them on, they tell you what to do. Mm-hmm. They give you instructions on how to use them. And they're very good at that. They've gotten to the point where anyone can basically use an AED. Mm-hmm. Some of the things you're talking about, like stopping, a spurting artery, you got to know what to do. You got to know which dressing to put on it. They have these I forget the technical name, but these certain type of dressings that stop bleeding, right? They coagulate the blood really quick, right?
Yep, quick clot, C-locks,
Quick
and
clot.
they're called hemostatics. Yep.
Yeah. So how do you handle that part of it, that the training part of not just training people, but getting people to be comfortable with, okay, I'm going to go do this?
Yeah, and that's a really good question. And honestly, it's a challenge and it's an uphill battle. And for me, selling bleeding control on a daily basis, people look at me cross-eyed and they're like,
right,
why do we need bleeding control? They don't realize that you can bleed to death in 3 minutes. And it really is an uphill battle. But kind of to back up, and I think your listeners probably would be interested in hearing the story on this, but how the bleeding control initiative kind of started was the terrible Sandy Hook tragedy. So that kid broke into that school. He started wreaking havoc and shooting all those poor little kids and those teachers. At that event, somebody had the foresight to activate the trauma team, just like they would in any community. So that means any level 1, level 2 trauma center gets put on standby and all the resources start coming down to the trauma bays, getting ready to start accepting patients. So a pioneer in this bleeding control space named Dr. Lenworth Jacobs and his team respond down to the ER. They start readying their equipment. They're waiting, and they're physically watching the events of Sandy Hook unfold on national television. And unfortunately, they didn't accept one patient that day.
Right.
25 and 6-year-olds died and 7 adults perished in that event. The after action report, Dr. Lenworth Jacobs and his team realized that there's a multitude of different reasons why there's no survivability. 1, large caliber of weapon. 2, dealing with little kids and headshots. 3, kids have less blood volume than adults. But 4, people really didn't know at that time how to stop bleeds. And he said this was very similar to the early 1960s when CPR was brought to the hospital systems in the United States. He said, we were saving people in the hospitals all over the country, but the general public didn't really know how to do it. And he said, so fast forward 12 years, circa 1972, they created a major initiative. They trained 250,000 people in CPR that year. It snowballed from there. From there, like American Heart Association was created down the road there. And that's become our standard of care today. He said, we need to do something similar to that here with bleeding control. So he put together and pioneered this organization. He created what today is known as the Hartford Consensus, which was a very, very large group of doctors, nurses, EMTs, paramedics, police officers, people that are very good in this space, security, medical, and then stop major bleeds, dealing with this whole space. And they created what we know today is called the Stop the Bleed, which is a canned course. It's a 90-minute curriculum that we're pumping out all over the country. But going back to your point with getting people trained up on it, it's just, I can go out all day, every day and say, how many people in this group, and usually I'm training groups of 8 to 10, how many people in this group have taken Stop the Bleed? 1 or 2. How many people in this this group have never even heard of Stop the Bleed? About 7 or 8 of them.
Right.
So
right.
It's just, we're not getting it out there fast enough. It is my biggest challenge. I need to be better about figuring out how to duplicate myself with online training and such like that. I'm known as the expert of that stuff around our area here, but I need to be better about duplicating to get out and teach everybody. It is a perishable skill. We tell people they need to train on this stuff at least once a year. If you don't use it, you lose it, especially with CPR. And science changes. I mean, as of mid-October this year, the AHA came out and made changes to CPR for certain aspects of it. So pediatrics and so science changes. So everybody, as you know, with CPR, we need to retrain every 2 years. Right. So, but with bleeding control, it's just not mandatory yet. I think it needs to get to that point. There's certain states that require you to take Stop the Bleed before you graduate high school. I think that's phenomenal.
Wow.
And I'll tell you what, I deal with more gunshot patients than anybody in my area, but I utilize bleeding control equipment and the training more on job-related injuries and car accidents than I ever do on shootings. And we get a lot of shootings. I'll tell you what, you're more than likely to use that equipment and that training on your own family, out on the camper, on the boat,
Right. That's a perfect segue to my next question. So people don't think about 2 types of situations that could happen to us in our daily lives. And I'm not talking about walking in on a mass shooting, but like in your home or with my boat, on my boat. And someone can have a cardiac issue. So they need an AED
Mhm.
because you're not going to do CPR for 3 hours.
No.
There's no one around that's going to do, and that person will, even if you did it for 3 hours, they're not going to make it.
For sure.
And the other thing that can happen is you can have an injury where you're bleeding profusely and you got to stop the bleeding. So those are two things that can happen in the household, two things that can happen out on my sailboat, two things that can happen anywhere. And we don't think about that. We people, we think, oh, we're going to break a leg. Well, you break a leg. Okay, you have a fracture. It's not a life. Chances are it's not a life-threatening injury.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you get to the hospital, if I break a leg on my boat and it takes me 6 hours to get to shore before I can get to the hospital, I'm probably not going to die.
You're going to survive.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm going to survive, and the outcome will be just about as good as if I would have got there in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
But if I have a massive bleed, if someone doesn't do something quickly, I'm in big trouble.
Absolutely.
So how do we think about what kind of advice can you give people who are, let's just take the boat, since this is, we talk about sailing in my podcast. How do you talk about or think about equipping a sailboat with some equipment? People who sail across oceans, they have these big emergency kits that you can buy. Some company puts them together. It has penicillin, it's got pain meds, it's got bandages and all sorts of stuff to take care of something when you're, 500 miles offshore. But I bet you more accidents happen in the bay, a mile off of shore. So what kind of things should people have, and what kind of training should they get? I know it's a complicated question, but
no, it's actually a really good question. And if you kind of relate it to like what OSHA mandates, so OSHA mandates that you have safety equipment that matches up to the specific hazards in your industry, right? So I'm going into a lot of these businesses that they're like, yeah, we have bleeding control. It's in the first aid kit over there. Well, have you ever checked out your first aid kit? You go over there and there's Band-Aids, there's gauze in there. You're not stopping a major bleed with that. So a lot of these companies don't think that they need bleeding control. We call them these high risk, low frequency emergencies. So on a boat, on a sailboat, you really need to start thinking about what are those high risk, low frequency emergencies. Like it's painful for me to teach a basic first aid course because it's just what we talked about. It's how do you splint a limb? How do you do this? How do you do that? What I like teaching about are what happens in an opioid overdose. How do you stop major bleeds, things of that nature. So
yes.
If it's me, I build a kit based on the most likely situations on those high risk situations. So I would absolutely have a bleeding control kit with quick clot. But the issue with quick clot is most public facilities around stay away from it because it expires and it's a little bit expensive. But if you're on a boat anywhere a ways away from a hospital, it helps you coagulate blood in less than 3 minutes when regular gauze takes 10. That would be something very, very smart to have. It doesn't take up much space to have a bleeding control kit. I don't know, AEDs would be great, but there's Pelican cases that can keep them dry, but you have other people on board because you're not going to install it on yourself.
Right.
Then you have access to get back or get help out there. Now, each minute that goes by without CPR and AED, your chance of survival drops 10%. So if you're out in the Bay Area, that makes, just like you were talking about earlier to me, you said people, when they're going a long ways away, they think about having all this robust equipment, but when they're out for the day, they don't think about having all this stuff. I carry a little backpack, and actually one of my big customers here in Omaha, there's a big Fortune 500 companies, and I can't mention names, but some of the wealthiest men in the world are from this area. So we build rescue task force backpacks, little small compact packs for their security detail. And inside that is just what you're talking about: bleeding control, EpiPen, Narcan for possible opioid overdoses, a compact AED, things like that for those high risk, low frequency emergencies that don't take up a lot of space. And then those guys are typically trained on it. So, and the training that comes along with that, it's pretty basic. I just trained a group here with a company over 2 hours how to do the stop the bleed stuff with all the first aid. And then the extra 2 hours was CPR. Very, very important stuff.
Yeah. The EpiPen's another good one, right? If you don't have that, you can't do anything for the person.
Absolutely. Right? And here's the part of the problem too, is you can wake up tomorrow and be allergic to something you never knew you were allergic to. It changes on people all the time. And then furthermore, you might say, oh, I feel like I'm kind of allergic to bees. Well, that second and third time you get stung could be way worse than the first. So it is really smart to have those. Problem is, for most people, those EpiPens are really expensive because there's a proprietary patent on those auto injectors.
The injector, yeah.
But you can get your hands on just regular epinephrine, adrenaline, and draw it up in a shot. If I'm out on a boat somewhere, if you get stung by a jellyfish or something like that, I would imagine there's allergies to that, right?
Yeah.
So absolutely something you should have.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. You don't have to have the auto injector. I have an EpiPen because I'm allergic to certain things. And I can remember 30 years ago when I first got diagnosed, the kit they gave me was a syringe.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And I had to give myself a shot.
Yep.
So it wasn't this fancy auto injector thing. And you know.
And it was cheap and it was affordable. And now big pharma's kind of pushing everybody in a direction we don't really want to go. And I'm seeing it in our communities. I'm showing up to families with kids that they have an auto injector EpiPen that's been expired by 2 years because they can't afford the $400 with their insurance to go get it.
Right.
So sad. So
right. But if you talk to your physician, they can prescribe. I don't know what's called now, but the kit I had was called an ANA kit.
Okay.
And it was, a little syringe, had 2 stops on it. So you get 2 doses out of the syringe.
Love that.
And it was great. I had that for many, many years until the EpiPens came out. So what did you talked about sort of what equipment to have on, let's say, a sailboat or at my house, right? A stop the bleed, maybe a little mini AED. I mean, the prices keep coming down, but they're still not cheap.
Yep.
And talked about EpiPen or something for an allergic reaction. What other big hit items are there?
Well, as far as the AEDs go, just note for the public, you can buy factory recertified or refurbished AEDs, and those are what most people carry. We have a group of high risk kiddos here in the Omaha area that they're very, very high risk to have a sudden cardiac arrest, and so we help them get recertified AEDs that are small enough that they can carry to the zoo and to the museum and stuff like that for very cheap. And when I say very cheap, they're class 3 medical devices. So $500 to $800 is very cheap for a recertified AED. But the only difference between that and a new one is the warranty. Pads and batteries are brand new. Our manufacturer, wholesaler goes through them with a fine-tooth comb, puts those on there. But as far as other equipment, we have an interest in Lake of the Ozarks, Missouri area, which has more shoreline than the entire state of California. It's a really big lake, and what I've recognized down there as a safety hazard is there's a lot of places where the fire department might be really quick by water, but it might be 20 minutes by car, or vice versa. So we created a water safety kit, and inside that water safety kit is bleeding control, super important. Obviously, we talked about that. We have different devices like a whistle, a P-less whistle to get people's attention. I'm sure you have all that on the boat out there. But we also have glow sticks to get people's attention. But then we have emergency flotation devices that are about the size of a pop can. You throw that, it blows up into a life preserver. Those are the big ones. Like outside of the Epi, Narcan is a really, really big one in our area right now because of opioid overdoses. And I'll tell you, it's not always what you think. It's not drug dealers anymore. It's accidental use. It's grandparents. It's kids getting into mom and dad's medicine cabinet and accidentally eating gummies. Out on the boat, probably don't need that as much, but wouldn't be a bad idea to carry. It doesn't take up much space. But as far as emergency equipment goes, those really are the big ones.
Nice. So let's switch gears again.
Okay.
I want to talk a little bit about starting a business and sort of what were the challenges? What were if someone said to you, hey, Dustin, give me your top 3 or 4 tips. I'm getting ready to start a business, right? What are your top 3 or 4 tips of advice that you would give me for starting a business?
We are, we're actually, my wife and I, January 1st, we're shifting gears again. We have our main brand, which is our kind of hub and spoke model, Talacko Safety Solutions. And we're trying to gear up for retirement down the road. And we want to be able to move south, but continue to do our business after we leave. She leaves teaching and I leave the fire department. And the only way that we can seem to do that is by building a brand that we can do anywhere. And our main brand, Talacko Safety Solutions, is a mouthful. I can tell you that right now, and you're going to get it 30 seconds later. So we created an online brand called AEDempire.com, and that's our online brand. We're just selling AEDs, bleeding control kits, life-saving equipment right away. And so a lot of our challenges with Talacko Safety are hopefully going to go away with AED Empire. But I'll tell you, probably the biggest one for me is working in the business and not working on the business. And you just get so busy down in the weeds working on, QuickBooks and all these things that you're not out knocking on doors the way you need to. So our current objectives now is we're trying to learn SEO and do all the things that will make it easier down the road. So I would say working in the business and not on the business is the biggest challenge. And then just dealing with family life on top of all this stuff. I'm busy running 3,000 calls a year, and a third of those calls are mine on my shift, on top of my wife being a kindergarten teacher. So when she comes home and I need help on something, I'd rather have dinner than her helping me on something. So we're great. She's my best friend and my partner and my 51% owner. We put it in her name. And her and my girls are passionate about this. We're trying to build this for our girls, but small business is hard. I'll tell you, I've done a lot of things in my life, and there is nothing more difficult than being a small business owner. I have so much respect for small businesses that really take off and do well. So it's challenging. It's stressful. And I can't imagine somebody that bankrolls everything they have, quits their job in corporate America, and puts their mortgage on the line and just goes and starts a business. How stressful. I'm doing this with the fire department. I'm very lucky, and my wife's lucky too, but it's tough. Yeah.
So let me ask you another question sort of about the business. When you start a business, and you're buying, if I understand it correctly, you're buying products that other manufacturers make.
Yep. Sometimes
you're packaging them differently. You're putting different ones together in a package or a kit. And when you talk about sales and distribution, how do you think about sales and distribution, right? There's we're going to do everything online, and people can order stuff online. They go to our website, and then you got to figure out how we're going to drive business to the website. Other options are have a direct sales team. You're going to knock on people's doors. Right. And then there's distributors. How did you sort of address that and think about it?
Yeah. So we started out and we kind of still are, a just-in-time business model. So B2B. So we're going out, knocking on doors, using relationships here, word of mouth, and getting business, drumming up business by training. I don't really want to train because it's a time suck, but it's a necessary evil. I look at it as a loss leader. We do have some proprietary products. We have one that a school district came to me and they're like, hey, you already sold us bleeding control. We have our first aid kit. We have our AED. We have EpiPen box. We have these boxes scattered all over the building. Why don't you just sell me one with everything in it? I'm like, yeah, that's actually a really good idea. So I went out and tried to source one, and I couldn't find it. So we essentially created our own. It's our own proprietary life safety station, which has one big enclosure, polycarbonate. It's watertight, airtight, and it can go anywhere, and it fits all those products in one. So we manufacture those, but everything else we basically source. We'll package a lot of our kits in-house, but we really are still, until we get AED Empire really rolling, we are a just-in-time business model where I'm going out, working on bids, but the challenge, and you asked about some of our challenges as a small business in this space. One of our big challenges, especially with supply chain, and the question you just asked, is some of our manufacturers that we buy from are bidding against us on some of these bids that we're putting in for. And it's like, you're killing us, but there's no way around it at this point. So so we are constantly struggling just to figure out what's the happy medium for us. And it is, for us, I think, being a just-in-time business model, we keep a par of equipment in-house. But moving forward, that's where AED Empire, I'm hoping that we can build that up to just be our bread and butter, and the sales come into us. I'm just focusing on the sales online, and I can do that, and I can hire a team. We have a great web guy that helps us get everything going. It hasn't translated into sales yet. As far as outside sales go, like I told you, I'm not a huge risk taker, but I haven't went out and hired a sales team. But what I've created is kind of unique. I've created what's called my poor man sales force. So there's 657 firefighters that I work with and over 700 police officers and then rural departments around us. And I'm promoting to all these departments. I say, hey, send me your leads, because everybody comes to firefighters. They're like, hey, where do I get an AED? Where do I get this stop the bleed? And a lot of times guys won't stick their neck out unless they know there's something in it for them. So I pay all my guys a 10% kickback. Generally, we operate on a 30% margin, and that allows me to pull 10% back and pay my guys. And that's worked out actually really well the last couple of years.
Yeah, very nice. So as I think about the sales process here, there's kind of two components to it. Let's just take, you go to a company and you knock on the door. First, you sort of have to convince the owner of the business that they need this in their business, right? So you got to make that sale, which probably means you got to educate them a little bit. You got to, you got to give them the pitch. And then once they buy, then you got to go back and train people on how to use it.
Yep.
Right. So there's a lot of this. So when you do that, do you charge for that training, or is it sort of included in the price of what?
It depends. A lot of times we'll do it as a loss leader just to get in if the deal's big enough. We do, and sometimes I'm really bad businessman because we give a lot of training away for free, but I do it selfishly because I want the community safer for my daughter. So when we get hit up by the Boy Scouts or the Girl Scouts or some schools, we want these people to know how to do it, because if I throw a price out, most of the time they're like, oh, well, we can't afford it. Well, okay, right. I'll come and do it for nothing sometimes. But we do charge, and the companies, and as you know, working with the construction companies, they don't blink at safety. Like whatever it takes. So we do go back and we train. Sometimes we train. That's what drums up the sales for us. But it's pretty often where I'm in with some of these decision makers. And I remember there's a company here in Omaha, fastest growing company in the state of Nebraska. I won't mention any names, but I'm standing there, and this company I'm standing on the sales floor, and there's all these operators on phones on their like headphones, and they're putting while they're hitting, while they're making sales calls. So it's one of those real techie companies, right? And there's literally a bar down in the lobby where at 4 o'clock they open up the bar and employees can go down and start drinking. And so they're not afraid of spending money. And I go, and I'm talking about bleeding control. And the guy looks at me, he goes, Dustin, I'm not telling you that bleeding control is a bad idea. I think it's probably a pretty good idea, but I don't want my employees to think that we're expecting anything. And I go, well, with all due respect, sir, it's really no different than that fire extinguisher over there. It's an insurance policy that you hope you never need. So it is an uphill battle. So for me, here's my thing is bleeding control is a harder sell, but I have less competition. AEDs is an easier sell, but there's a lot of competition in that space. So I just need to make myself unique. And we do that because most of my competitors around this area don't do what I do. They don't respond to major emergencies. When I walk in and I sell, or when I walk in and I do training, I'm selling my experience of being on an ambulance, running 3,000 calls a year. And people around here read about it in books. They don't know how to do that.
Right.
So training is absolute necessary evil. And these people don't feel like they even want to touch the equipment without it. So we have to do it more and more.
Yeah. And it almost seems like, there's been this progression, and you brought it up earlier, kind of CPR was sort of the first thing that the general public sort of became aware of and got trained on. And then sort of AEDs, it was sort of the next, right? Everywhere you go, you see AEDs, and at least around here now, Narcan is the big push, right? I can go to the sheriff's department and they'll sell me Narcan.
Yep.
Right.
And you could probably get it for free from your state. Most states in the U.S. you can get it for free. Yeah.
Yeah. I should have used the word free. Right.
Yeah.
I can get it for free. They're giving it away to you. So I think bleeding control is probably the next thing in that sequence. Right.
I think you're right.
Makes sense.
Right? I really do. And a lot of states are changing that. It's just happening really slow. And OSHA's kind of slowly moving that way. Again, going back to that OSHA standard where they're like, you need to have equipment that matches up to your specific hazards. But now the other problem is some of my competitors are out there. They're like, well, there's not great margin on these tourniquets. So you're familiar with like a CAT tourniquet, a combat application tourniquet.
Yep.
There's 30 to 40% margin max on those, sometimes less. So you could buy counterfeits on Amazon. You can buy 4 of them for the price of 1. They're Chinese, and they might work on a kid or a small muscle group like an arm, but those things will catastrophically fail when you need them most. The windlass rods are snapping, the buckles tearing on them. So we have some of our competitors are literally putting these fake tourniquets in these places, and it's going to lead to deaths at some point. And it's so that's part of the thing too, is we're selling against that. So, you know,
but it also seems to me, and you brought this up as an example as well, that if I'm running a business and I say, okay, I want to get some of these things, I don't want to have to go out to one place and buy an AED, go to another place and buy the Narcan, go to another place and buy an EpiPen, go to another place and buy the bleeding control. Put a kit together for me. Make it easy. Make it easy for me to purchase. Right.
Absolutely. That's a great idea.
Right. And because then it makes my job, it's one decision. Okay, Dustin, you convinced me. I need to get this. Just sell me the kit.
Absolutely.
Right. Because if I'm a businessman, my job is not to spend a lot of time on that stuff.
Absolutely.
I'm running a business. So the easier you can make it for me to and the same thing goes true with, you know, in my house or on a boat or in my RV or wherever, right? If you make it easy for me, it's like one decision. Okay, I got it. I buy this and I know I have what I need to take care of the situations that may arise.
That's great advice. And I need to start packaging all those together. Right now, I don't think people understand the value of all of them together, but they really all are so important. Yeah. The other challenge is the AEDs, the batteries, depending on which brand you purchase, they expire anywhere from 2 to 5 years. And then there's temperature constraints to some of those medications. So Narcan, it's not supposed to freeze. It's not supposed to be over 104 degrees. AEDs, those can't freeze because there's pads and the pads have gel in it. And if the gel freezes, you can't use them on your chest. So there's all these different challenges with that, but that's actually a really good idea. Just gotta have to figure out how it all goes together.
Yeah. Make it easy for the person to buy it, the decision maker. Boom.
Yeah.
Right.
Love that.
And because most of the times, whether it costs $400 or whether it costs $500, that's not going to make a difference.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. I don't think.
I love that. And
if I'm convinced I need this for my business or I need it for my boat, difference between 400 and 500 or what?
They're not that big of a deal. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
Then the back end part of that is tracking all that stuff. So making sure that, we track when pads and batteries expire so that when you get close, you're getting emails from us. We're letting you know that stuff's getting close so that you can change them out. Right. So all that stuff's important too.
You know, as you bring that up, it's interesting. On my water system at home, I have city water. I have a filtration system. And the company that sells me the filters reminds me every 6 months, time to change your filter. Would you like to order a new one? Right? It's great. Why can't the darn smoke and CO2 detector company do the same thing to say, hey, change your batteries?
So that's actually really interesting because when I first got in the fire service 13 years ago, we were putting up first day smoke detectors. CO detectors weren't really around a whole lot. They were a little bit, but we were putting smoke detectors in for free based on grants. And then the challenge is we'd go in the neighborhood that I worked in, a couple of months later, we'd go to a house that was on fire and then somebody dies in the house fire. And we're like, well, what happened to the smoke detector? And then after the fire's out and we get the patients out of there, we go in there and we realize, oh, they took the batteries out. I wonder where so they ended up in the remote. So now what they do, and I think this is genius, when most of these fire departments are getting smoke detectors from a grant, there's a tab that you pull in there, and once you
Yes.
pull it, it activates it, and it's good for 10 years. After the end
Yes.
of 10 years, you throw it away. And so that's kind of the way that it is now. Now CO2, or I'm sorry, CO. If you have natural gas or propane in and around your house, you've got to have a CO detector. It's the silent killer. I see it a lot in our area. So if any of your listeners don't have one, just understand it's the silent killer. You have to get one of those things, and that just how important they are.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. We just had a recent tragedy in sort of my community where.
Did you really?
Yeah. A CO detector either wasn't installed or wasn't functioning or whatever, but a person passed away because of CO.
And it happens a lot in our area. It could be something as simple as the car starters. We see that from time to time where a car is in the garage and the car accidentally gets started, or sometimes the elderly that maybe they're a little altered mental status. They pull in the garage and forget to shut the car off.
Yeah.
So that happens from time to time, or it's the first time the furnace has been turned on for the year and there's an issue there. But it's always a tragedy, and you're not going to know unless you have a detector. It's scary.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Dustin, I want to start wrapping this up. So is there anything I haven't asked you about that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I don't think so. I just want to make a couple shameless plugs for all of your listeners and your communities. I really believe it's important that everybody gets CPR trained. Like I mentioned, you can start to have an anoxic brain injury with no oxygenated blood around your brain in less than 4 minutes. You can bleed out in less than 3 minutes. Each minute that goes by with no AED or CPR, your chance of survival drops 10%. So this training is really inexpensive. Any community around the country, if you have the time, do it. If you have kids, you need to do it. I mean, if you have little ones at home, there's no excuse. You need to do this. You need to learn how to do the Heimlich and do all the things that it takes to eject an item that's stuck in an airway. That happens with the pediatrics all the time. So just go out and get that training. I just see too many tragedies in the community when we show up. People are not prepared. They don't know. They're doing the wrong things. So that's my shameless plug. Just go out and get some CPR training. There's training just about anywhere. You can get it online. You don't even need to leave your house for some of it. That's right.
Well, that's not a shameless plug. I call that really, really good advice.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And if anybody needs anything, you can find my contact info on our domain. It's aedempire.com. Call my phone's on there. Call me, and I'll give you free advice, whatever you need. And we see a lot in this community, which can't be too much different than yours. And we just like to help people, and that's the beauty of being a firefighter and making my salary with there. And then this company on the side is just it's basically allows me to help people. So that's what we want to do. It fulfills us and it fills our glass.
Yeah. Wonderful. Hey, Dustin, it's been a real pleasure. I think you've given our listeners something to think about, both in terms of, whether it be their home or their RV or their boat, and just sort of getting some training and being prepared for those things that are truly life-threatening. And because it can make a difference for sure.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much.
It's really been and my last thing is just remember fire departments are usually 5 to 15 minutes away. So
that's right.
You need to be able to bridge that gap by that time. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is to save your own and to have the equipment and know how to use it. So
that's right. That's right. That's a real good point, right? We think about instant response, and by the time you recognize the issue, you make the phone call, they get dispatched, chances are it's going to be at least 5 minutes. And around where I'm at, we're kind of rural. So, it may take a little longer. So, Dustin, it's been really wonderful chatting with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yep.
Thank you.
Really interesting interview, Bela. What are your main takeaways?
Mike, this really got me thinking about sort of emergencies, life-threatening emergencies on the boat, at home, or any place that I'm at, I come across. And, and our listeners know I've been involved in the ski patrol for many, many years. And most of the times, the injuries you come across, and this is true at home as well, are not life-threatening. I might break my leg, but if I get to the hospital within the next 10, 12 hours, everything's going to be fine. Chances are the outcome will be just fine. I don't need to get there within the next 20 minutes. I don't need any intervention. However, there are some things that if we don't intervene and we don't do something, like bleeding, like severe bleeding, you have 2 to 3 to 5 minutes and you're gone. Or if you have AFib or cardiac arrest, if you don't do something, again, 3 to 5 minutes, you're gone. So this conversation with Dustin really got me thinking about those things. And it really sort of brought to light how important some education, training on what to do in these situations is important, not just on the boat, because look, on the boat, even if I'm just on the bay, I'm a good half hour at least away from any sort of assistance. I gotta act and take care of that situation. And at home, there too, depending on where you live, we have pretty good EMS services where I live. So I'm probably 5 minutes away, but 5 minutes can be too long. I think there's things that would be helpful for everyone to learn more about. Number one is how to control bleeding, how to control life-threatening bleeding. And that's pretty simple. It's you got a leaky pipe and you got to figure out how to plug the pipe, or stop the pipe from flowing. And there's some good techniques for doing that. The other one is CPR. And there's a lot of people who offer CPR courses around the country. And, let me say that in my life, I've done CPR 5 times. So, it's a big, important thing to know how to do. And the other thing is these AEDs, defibrillators. They have become less and less expensive. They're small portable units. And you see them cropping up all over the place. Every restaurant has one. Every mall has one. Almost every retail store has one. So every place you go has one. You might want to think about getting one for home. And you have to kind of think about that because it's a $300 to $500 price tag. But at least you should know how to use one. Because if you're in a situation, you should know what the AED is for, how to apply it. And you don't have to spend hours and hours learning how to do that because all of the modern AEDs, once you open them up, they instruct you on what to do, but you still sort of want to be familiar with that. You don't want that to be the first time you've experienced this because it's a high pressure situation. So get a little training, maybe get some equipment that you don't have, maybe get a tourniquet. These tourniquet kits you can buy the special gauze that stops the bleed. It helps blood coagulate really quickly. And I think it's important to have those things and be familiar how to use them. So that was sort of my big takeaway on this, Mike. It really got me thinking about that stuff.
Yeah. On one hand, I hate thinking about these possibilities, right? I don't like blood or any of this stuff. But on the other hand, I totally realize how important it is really for all of us on a boat or off a boat, right? To think about these possibilities. And even more importantly, to be prepared, as you said, with both training and equipment. Especially those of us who spend lots of time on boats, where, as you said, you're a ways away from help. But really for all of us in our daily lives, at work, at home, when we're out shopping or whatever, these issues are important. And, I know you're much closer to this with ski patrol and everything, but I was trained a long time ago as an EMT. And I know that kind of a little bit of forethought and a lot of times, a lot of this equipment is not very expensive. A defibrillator is a little bit of an investment, but all these other things you mentioned are pretty inexpensive. And being thoughtful enough to jump into action to use them when a crisis hits might be an incredible lifesaver. I mean, one of my best friends had his heart going to AFib and fell off his bike and would have died, but a couple of trained nurses just happened to be there on the street and they just installed an AED in the coffee shop and it saved his life. right? He's my age, young guy, right? So these things can make a difference. And hopefully you're never in a situation where you need these things, right? But you certainly, be remiss to not be considering this and thinking about this. So I don't know, given your experience, do you have some kind of action items or some important piece of advice that listeners should be considering?
Yeah, I do, Mike. So number one, get some training. It's not expensive. You can find it locally. It's a few hours. Go do that. Because even though there's all these AEDs around, you want to know this is a situation where I should use it, and you got to go tell somebody, go get the AED, bring it here to me, and I know how to use it. So that's important. The other thing is, people on boats, particularly if you do some long distance cruising, you all have something called a ditch bag, right? It's a bag, literally a bag, a duffel bag. It's got a bunch of stuff in it, like food, an extra radio, some fishing line, blah, blah, blah. It's in case the boat sinks, right? It's like, I got some supplies so I can survive a few days at least in my life raft. It's called a ditch bag. Everyone's got that. Well, you should have one. So I also have what I call a crash bag, and I keep it in the car. It's not as big as my ditch bag. It's a small little bag. I have some bleeding control stuff in there. I have a pocket mask for CPR. I got a tourniquet, and a couple of, I got some airways in there. So I keep that in the trunk of my car because my car is almost always where I am at. If I'm home, I know it's in the trunk of the car. My wife knows it's in the trunk of the car. If I go to the boat, I take it from the trunk of the car and I carry it onto the boat with me. And then when I'm off the boat, I put it back in the car. If I go to visit somebody, I go in the car. So that's how I solve that problem. I mean, it's not all that ingenious or anything, but actually it took me a little while to figure that out because I was thinking, okay, I got to get a bunch of different tourniquets. I got to get a bunch of airway packs. I got to do all this stuff. No, I just have one and I can move it with me. So I highly recommend you think about doing something like that. First of all, take some courses, then get yourself a crash bag that you can have with you because you literally can save someone's life. And it might be one of your kids, or maybe one of your kids will save your life. So it's really important to do. And I just think that was one of the net pieces of advice that I took away from this conversation with Dustin. Any last thoughts from your side, Mike?
Yeah, and just a cool startup story, right? And he's really passionate about this, and I love that. It's really important to him. But yeah, I think these are all really good points, and I think there's food for thought for all of us on this. What do you think? Time to wrap this one up?
Yep, let's do it, Mike.
Okay, listeners, thanks for joining us for yet another episode. We hope you found our conversation interesting and thought-provoking, obviously, just like you and I did, Bela. And if folks want, feel free to contact us using our email address, sailingtheeast, that's all one word, @gmail.com.
And finally, if you enjoyed the podcast, please hit that like button on your favorite podcasting apps. It helps other people find us, and it'll show up in their podcasting apps at a higher part of their list. And if you know of someone that would be a good guest, hey, reach out to us and let us know, and we'll get them on the show. So until next time, signing off from upstate New York. Take care.
From over here on the other side of the Atlantic in Münster, Germany, Bela, thanks for everything that you do. And listeners, thanks for listening. And we'll see everybody next time.